Hello and welcome to our video where you will be joining us in learning more about Ukraine and its folk music. Ukraine is famous for its folk music and especially its folk resistance. In fact, now is no better time than to celebrate Ukrainian folk music as the current existential threat posed by Russia's invasion to Ukrainian culture has forced Ukrainian performers to think more about how they can use their art to express their identity. Many musicians have turned to fusing together traditional folk culture with more mainstream pop to bring Ukrainians together, whilst also reinstating and celebrating Ukrainian identity as a whole. However, this dates all the way back to 1919, where during the Soviet Union's occupation of Ukraine, Russia used folk performance to present Ukrainian identity as something inferior to Russian identity, or otherwise known as Leszczyńska. Hanna, a researcher and designer of traditional Ukrainian clothes, explains, Soviet authorities banned everything. They had to show something because, yes, of course, Ukrainians exist, so they created this acceptable expression of Ukrainian identity. But first, let's talk about Ukrainian folk music.
Folk songs occupy a special place in Ukrainian art. In Ukrainian culture, there is no event in life that could do without a song. Ukrainian music folklore is the wealth of the Ukrainian people who have been impressing the world with their melody and soulfulness for many centuries. No nation in the history has as many songs as the Ukrainian people. UNESCO has an amazing collection of folk songs from all over the world. The Ukrainian collection includes about 15,500 songs. The most popular genres of Ukrainian songs are calendar and ritual songs, which people sing on or right before the holiday, веснянки, щедрівки, гаївки, колядки, family and household songs, it's wedding songs, joke songs, lullaby, funeral songs, surf everyday life, chumak, burla kozak songs, historical songs and duma. Common characteristics of Ukrainian folk songs. Most of Ukrainian folk songs are harmonically very complex. Here you can hear the use of Mixolydian and Dorian modes, also pentatonic scale. Furthermore, Ukraine has its own Hutzul mode with a raised 4 and low 7th. Kobzars also occupied a large part of Ukrainian creative life. Kobzar is a Ukrainian folk singer and musician. Kobzars were the creators, keepers, and transmitters of the epic tradition in the form of historical songs, dumas, melodic recitatives of varying forms, religious chants, moralistic songs, as well as fairy tales and legends, accompanied by playing the kobza, lyre or bandura. Another significant part of Ukrainian folk art and everyday life is occupied by folk dances. Ukrainian dance is a folk or stage dance of different regions of Ukraine. Now I'm going to tell you about the most popular few. The first place belonged to Hopak. Initially, Hopak was a kind of warm-up dance during which the Cossacks honed their fighting skills. The second most popular dance in Ukraine is the Cossack dance, named after the Cossacks. It is performed in pairs without any tricks. It's characterized by lightness, tenderness, and lyricism. Improvisation and humorous moments are often used. Kolomeyka is a type of Carpathian dance. The name comes from short folk songs. The dance is performed in pairs or with an even number of participants dancing in a circle. If there are ritual songs, then there are also ritual dances. Horovod is a ritual and game dance of syncretic type. This type of dance was popular during the Christmas and spring holidays. The purpose of the dance was to divine happiness in love and married life.
Miroslav Skoryk, a leading Ukrainian composer and musicologist of the 21st century. He won many awards such as Hero of Ukraine in 2008 and People's Artist of Ukraine in 1988. Miroslav Skoryk was born on 13th July 1938 in a family of Ukrainian intellectuals that are closely connected with art and science in Lviv. Also, one of the composer's close relatives was the opera singer Solomia Krushelnitska. During her lifetime, she was recognized as the world's greatest singer. The Italian composer Giacomo Puccini presented her with a portrait of himself with the inscription, "To the greatest and most charming butterfly." Skoryk entered the Lviv Music School in 1945, but because Skoryk's family had an anti-Soviet position, they were deported to Siberia in 1947, where he spent the rest of his childhood. Only after Stalin's death in 1953 did the repressions ease. Miroslav was allowed to return to Lviv with a clean passport. In 1960, he graduated from the Mykola Lysenko Lviv State Conservatory under the guidance of professors Stanislav Ludkiewicz, music theory, Roman Simovich, and Adam Soltis, composition. From 1966 until the late 1980s, he taught composition at the Kiev Conservatory. Among his graduates are a large number of well-known Ukrainian composers. For a long time, he worked in the USA, and since 1996, in Australia. In the late 1990s, he returned to Ukraine and began teaching again. He died sadly on 1st of June 2020 in Kyiv. Skoryk's works are regularly performed in Ukraine and around the world. The composer actually often appears as a conductor and pianist, performing his own works. In terms of style, he continued the traditions of the Lviv school of composers, but gave modernity with his own vision. In particular, Carpathian folklore and Lviv city and salon music, as well as contemporary popular music, especially jazz. Some of his most famous works are the ballet, The Return of the Butterfly, and the Carpathian Concerto. However, the work that made the composer famous throughout the country is the Hutzul triptych for Serhii Parajanov's film, Shadows of Forgotten Ancestors. Skoryk's soundtrack for Shadows of Forgotten Ancestors is known for its innovative use of folk melodies and motifs, which is seamlessly integrated into the film to recall Ukraine's rich cultural heritage. It consists of 3 movements: Childhood, Ivan and Marichka, and Ivan's Death. Hutzul Triptych, Childhood, is a special piece in the film's score that demonstrates Skoryk's skill in combining traditional Ukrainian motifs with modern orchestration. Childhood, or often written in the score as dance, is the first movement of the cycle. Characterized by lively rhythms, complex melodies, and bright harmonies that recall the energetic nature of Hutzul folk dances, while jazz elements add a modern touch to the work. The movement begins with a polyrhythmic pattern that appears throughout the work. The music pulsates with a sense of vitality and joy, transporting listeners to the heart of the Hutzul Mountains. Harmonically, this piece features modal transitions and colourful chord progressions that give this music a sense of authenticity. Miroslav's work on Shadows of Forgotten Ancestors remains a testament to his compositional talent and deep understanding of Ukrainian musical traditions, leaving an indelible mark on both the film and the history of Ukrainian cinema.
Vasyl Alexandrovich Bavinsky was a Ukrainian composer, pianist, conductor, teacher, musicologist, and an outstanding representative of Ukrainian musical culture of the 20th century. Vasyl Bavinsky was born in Ternopil on the 20th of February 1888. The Bavinsky family is one of the oldest in Ukraine, and they were well-known figures in Ukrainian culture. Vasil's mother was a singer and a pianist, Hanna Bervinska, and she became his first music teacher. He then received his professional music education at the Lviv Conservatory, and in 1907 he moved to Prague to continue his musical education. In 1915, Vasil returned to Lviv and became director and professor of Leszczyńska. There he continued his creative work. He composed vocal works, as well as arranged and instrumentalized the words of his predecessors. In 1944-48, Bavinsky headed the Lviv Conservatory and directed the Lviv branch of the Union of Composers of Ukraine. But after World War II, in 1948, Bavinsky was arrested and served 10 years in the Gulag camp in Mordovia. Chamber music constitutes a significant part of Bavinsky's overall outputs. The composer was influenced by Ukrainian folk music, but never actually incorporated direct quotations. Rather, using the folk music lore as an inspiration for his original works, he skillfully recreated some melodic and rhythmic patterns in such a way that they indeed betray a close affinity with the folk tradition. You are now listening to his piano trio in A minor, the first movement. Composed in 1910, this trio reflects the spirit of Ukrainian musical culture, enriched with classical and national elements. This composition combines a classical form with romantic content, coloured by Husserl folklore in the last parts. In its lyrical sphere, it's marked by the specific sentimentality of Ukraine. It also includes dance elements, mostly of a lively character. The first movement contains a Ukrainian song and a folk dance. The work begins with a slow introduction by the cello, accompanied by the piano, which consists of two themes: a broad melodic narrative theme in 4/4, similar to the Ukrainian thought, and a rhythmic dance-like theme in 3/4. The introduction contains a contrast that is formative for the whole composition. The epic lyrical character of the Cantilena episodes is contrasted with the dance. As in most Ukrainian folk songs, the most common theme is love, and in the first movement of the Menomosses section, there's a beautiful duet between the violin and cello, reminiscent of a man and woman. The second part is a reflection of Ukrainian nature, as if after a cold winter comes spring, which smoothly flows into a warm summer. The third movement, Kolomika, is an attempt by the composer to write in the style of Ukrainian folk dance. The Kolomika is a two-step dance with a syncopated rhythm which has a lively tempo and a humorous character. The introduction of a dance in the finale of a multi-part work was traditional for composers of the classical and romantic periods. The use of the Kolomika in this regard was an innovation. Bavinsky, adopting the general moods of the Kolomika, did not directly quote from a folk melody, but created its own on its basis, perfectly capturing the spirit of the Huston dance. The part contains typical rhythms of the dance, as well as harmonies and character inherent in the components. The A minor trio is an outstanding work. The composer perfectly combined the musical material used, and undoubtedly the place of composition and the relationship with the master of the romantic musical form, Vyacheslav Novakom. It is also impossible not to see the specific Czech liveliness of the work, which is expressed in the clarity of form, melodic charm of the themes, and connections with folk tradition. With this work, Bavinsky opened the way for Ukraine.
To summarize, folk songs have been an integral part of the life of Ukrainians since time immemorial. There is a good expression, as long as the Ukrainian folk song lives, Ukraine lives. And with that being said, I hope you enjoyed our video. Bye!